reality. Stay tuned. Welcome to The New Love Addiction. I'm Alan Robarge, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Let's explore longing, specifically from the point of view of a person who has an attachment injury. An attachment injury comes from an experience, usually through childhood. It can happen in our adult relationships, but we're looking at over time, developmentally, some experience that impacted your attachment system in such a way that you have not fully recovered or integrated that experience. When this happens, when we have an unintegrated attachment injury, it is similar or essentially the same thing as having an attachment trauma. So we use the word trauma. Trauma could be overt, covert, incident specific, or developmental, as I've already said. Developmental meaning over a period of time, a series of adverse experiences of somehow being ignored, neglected, abandoned, abused, or betrayed. It is an ongoing chronic experience of feeling unseen, unknown, unheard, and misunderstood. When this happens, when we don't recover from that experience, we have an attachment trauma. Trauma has three specific main categories of symptoms. And in this moment, I'm not going to mention all three. I want to talk about and highlight what is referred to as intrusion, which mostly shows up as intrusive thinking. It could also show up as far as in the body, as far as intrusive feelings, intrusive emotions, even intrusive body sensations. The mind is unable to make peace with or integrate the trauma, or we could use the phrase trauma energy. And what happens when we're in a situation, in this context, since we're talking about attachment, we're talking about when you're in a relationship, and there is a certain level of intimate relating, a certain level of emotional intimacy, usually the attachment trauma will become triggered. It could also be based upon a specific event, precipitating event, such as a partner is unavailable or distancing, or in some way it's either real or perceived that there is a disconnect from getting our emotional needs, emotional validation, emotional reassurance from a partner. When this happens, it can trigger and light up our nervous system so that now we're experiencing this intense feeling of needing to reconnect with a partner. Oftentimes, when a relationship ends, we will get activated in this intrusive thinking, with these intrusive thoughts. And it becomes like obsessive mind, obsessive thinking, where we are continually playing in our mind. This is not a choice. It's not something that we are purposefully trying to make happen in our thoughts. It's not voluntary. It's an involuntary product, a symptom of trauma, that what happens is our mind starts looping in obsessive thinking. Thinking about him, thinking about her, what is she doing? Why didn't she call? I think I need to call her. Where is he going? And this ongoing, relentless commentary in our mind just keeps intruding upon our well-being. So that's where the word intrusion comes. It's this quality of it's coming in, it's intruding upon our experience so that it's actually disruptive. We might notice it more in what we would call, what we would think of as our downtime, when we're not as distracted, when we're not as preoccupied with work or keeping ourselves busy, we're just sitting at home, any type of time where we can really slow down and be open to our thoughts and to our mind, what happens is our peace of mind gets hijacked and the intrusive thinking comes in and the mind starts spinning, and we begin to go down the road of what if this, and maybe we should get back together, and if only I had said this, and maybe he needs to do this, or maybe she needs to do that, and if only she didn't, and you're off. Your mind just keeps going, churning. There is an emotional quality that comes with this because it's linked to the attachment system, the desire to reconnect, the desire to feel some sense of safety and reassurance, even though you know the relationship has ended. And perhaps for many people, they also participated and wanted the relationship to end. But even though that it has ended, the mind is still experiencing some overwhelming sense of this intrusive, obsessive, ongoing, relentless thinking. There is a deception that comes with this experience, because what happens over time is that it wears us down. We get confused. Not only is there content in the thoughts, what is he doing? What is she doing? What are they saying? What about this? Maybe this happened. Remember that one time? I think I need to call. Why didn't she call? The fact that it keeps going, it links to the emotional experience of longing. There's an emotional charge, and simultaneously, assuming that the relationship has ended, there will be this intense feeling of grief, missing the person, feeling physically hurt. It brings a physical pain in our body to want to reconnect with this person, and we can't. So I'm beginning to break down to focus that there are different components. You have the churning of the mind, just the process of churning habituated, obsessive mind. And then you have the content, you have the actual thoughts of the mind. He said this, she said this, what if this, maybe this, playing out memories. And again, we're not in control in the sense that we're manufacturing this. The mind is just churning it out. We're attempting to go about our day, and we find ourselves repeatedly becoming bombarded with memories and images and beliefs about what happened and what needed to happen and what didn't happen. And again, that's the nature of this intrusive thinking. So if we're breaking down the components, we have the quality of mind that's churning. We have the actual thoughts of whatever the content is. It could be memories, trying to work out bargaining of, how could we get back together? And then there's the emotional component. There is an electricity, a charge, a missing the person, a yearning, an urgency, an anxiety. I got to get to the person. I have to connect. I have to connect. I need to connect to this person. I need to connect. I need to find safety. I need reassurance. I need validation. Is everything okay? Is everything okay? Is everything okay? There's an intensity that comes with this. So again, we have habituated mind, we have the content of the thinking, and then we have the electricity and the charge of the emotion, that a profound desire to get back together or to be with the other person. When we begin to break down these components, we can start to see how reality is distorted, and that we cannot trust this process as having any proof that we need to be with the other person, that there is a necessity to be with the other person, or if in fact it is or isn't a healthy, good relationship to try to salvage or try to repair. Because that's what's happening, or that's what happens when we get so caught up in the painful experience of obsessive thinking and the intrusive thoughts, we begin to believe them. It's only natural. I mean, think about it. If you go 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hour, all day, 3 days, this can go on, quite honestly, it could go on for months for some people, where you wake up in the morning and there might be 2 or 3 seconds of a sense of freshness in your mind. And by second number 4 and number 5, consciousness hits you, the relationship's over, and you're separated, and it's ending, and then it starts, and it starts churning. Well, this wears us down. We become so confused by the intensity, and we naturally want relief. And a very logical way to seek relief is to begin to believe the intensity of the longing as proof that we need to repair, we need to get back together, we need to salvage this relationship. Now, of course, I do not know if that is or isn't true. There would have to be something unique to each person's experience. Of course, people reconcile. Of course, people get back together. Of course, people repair relationships. But for the sake of this video and for the sake of looking at the quality of mind when we are activated in our attachment trauma, that information is not reliable, and most likely trying to discern or make the decision whether or not repair is possible is not going to happen when you are activated in intrusive thinking. You would not be coming from your most resourced self. You would not be coming from your most intelligent self. You would not be coming from your most rational self. You would be trying to make decisions based upon losing resource and becoming overly preoccupied with the other person due to the intensity of this longing. So it's not reliable. It creates a deception. It distorts our reality. But the problem is that we get so confused in this state because it wears us down, and we begin to think that it is true. There must be some kind of validity to the intensity that I'm feeling. The attachment injury came from childhood, which is not always true for everybody. We very much can experience some form of betrayal or abandonment as adults in an abusive relationship, in a relationship where someone really undermines our sense of trust, and we would experience an attachment injury. For most people, there's some history of insecure attachment coming from their family system and their family history. So when we look at attachment injuries, we oftentimes are very directly talking about childhood relationships with parents, childhood relationships with family members, and how that really set the stage and set the tone, created a template in our mind for how we create adult relationships. So the challenge when we end a relationship, and there's this intrusive thinking, this obsessive thinking, the longing, the intense emotional experience of needing to reconnect with the other person. Oftentimes, when we are working with an attachment injury, what this means is that the degree to which I am feeling the intensity of the longing for my current adult partner is mirroring the degree to which I was hurt or unseen, unheard, misunderstood, not known in my family. So that's a really important point. Let me repeat this. When we have an attachment injury and it gets triggered, and one of the symptoms is intrusive thinking, which is going to show up as longing and habituated thought. I like to categorize it as him, or we change the pronoun and we say her, and it just is relentless. When this happens, we are going to experience an intense emotional longing and urgency to reunite with our loved one, our beloved, our partner. In object relations terms, psychobabble likes to use the word object to make it very generic. Say we are longing for the object of our desire. We're longing for the other person, and we need to reconnect with that object. So when this is happening and the longing is so intense, we assume it has to do with our current adult relationship. And what I'm pointing out is that, in fact, it doesn't. The intensity and the degree to which you're experiencing the longing is mirroring the degree to which you were ignored or neglected in your family as a child. And it is the unresolved grief and the unresolved hurt of having experienced such neglect or being ignored or some aspect of abandonment from childhood that is activating and getting projected onto this current loss. One way that I have worked with this and experienced this in my own mind has to do when relationships end. That I have been in a couple situations where I know the relationship is not good for me. I know the relationship needs to end, and I actually initiate the ending. I do what I need to do in the spirit of being honest with myself, in the spirit of having good boundaries, in the spirit of being direct and following through. I am able to initiate the ending of a relationship. Something rather bizarre happens so many hours later, so many days later. Potentially it could be weeks, but for me it doesn't take very long. After I initiate the ending, and I'm so 100% clear that it is not a healthy relationship and we need to part ways, it's time to end. What happens is my brain begins to hijack the current situation and begins to rewrite the story, the situation, as I am being abandoned. As if now the other person is abandoning me and I'm being rejected, and I need to reconcile that. It puts me very much in a disempowered place. It's a kind of victim mentality. And I have observed, both with clients working in relationship coaching and couples counseling, but also using this example with myself, I have observed that it is so confusing and bizarre of an experience to know that there's this rational part of my mind, this kind of observer self that's able to discern and say, this is not a healthy relationship, I need to end. And nonetheless, there's this other part of my mind that comes in and is now rewriting the experience as if I'm being rejected. And then the rejection drops down into deeper, more intense feelings of betrayal, deeper and more intense feelings of abandonment, deeper and more intense feelings that now I'm being shut out, rejected, and ignored. None of that information that's coming in that moment is reliable for me to assume that it means I'm supposed to reunite with the person I'm ending a relationship with. That is a misapplication of that information. What I've had to learn to do over time is to realize the place that my mind takes me, the depth of feeling some form of rejection and abandonment, even though I'm the one that initiated an ending of a relationship, the intensity of those feelings is my attachment injury. The intensity of those feelings are the unresolved childhood grief, is the unresolved childhood grief that is now coming out through this current life scenario. What I need to do in that moment, what I need to practice, is to really strengthen and fortify my rational mind and tell myself that I'm not longing for the person, I'm longing for comfort. And I need to begin to pull the projection and pull the story off of the current adult relationship, and I need to just sit with the intensity of the emotional longing. That is sophisticated work. That is so challenging. It's much easier said than done. And let me repeat that point. The approach, the skill, is to begin to separate out the story and the object of your longing, meaning the person, from the actual experience of the intensity of the emotion. And we create a very clear boundary in our mind to say, it's not about the other person. It's about me attending to my own state of mind. This is about me and my longing. This is about me and the intense urgency of this trauma symptom of intrusion, of this looping obsession that keeps churning of I feel unsafe, I feel fear, I feel insecure about where I'm at in this moment, given the relationship has ended. This is challenging work. It can so easily derail us, and when it does, we find ourselves attempting to reunite with a person that we know is not the right person for us. When we get derailed and when we get worn down, we find ourselves sending text messages to a person that we ultimately know is not the right person to be in relationship with. But we get confused because the longing distorts our reality and makes us believe that we in fact need to be with that person. That's not true. What we need to do is learn how to heal the intensity of longing that is the result of a childhood attachment injury where you did not feel seen, known, heard, or understood in your family system. I hope this is helpful. My name is Alan Robarge. I am a relationship coach. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel to watch future videos if this video interests you. You could also join a Facebook group titled The New Love Addiction. It's on Facebook. I will put the URL here. And also, finally, as a relationship coach, I work with clients remotely, either by phone or through video conferencing. So if perhaps that interests you and you want to check out how to work with me, my website is alanrobarge.com.